For this video, I'm using another artwork from class, but I've adjusted it so that it is high contrast, black and white, so we're not distracted by the shadowing. So in this video, everything is packed much more closely together. So when we do ultimately need to print it, it's going to be a little bit different because it won't organically have space between motifs, and we're going to have to make sure there is space so that it can lock together like a puzzle piece. So I've started by already putting it into its half drop. So it is a straight repeat that contains a half drop. I'm just going to draw on it so everybody can see exactly what that looks like. So we have a straight repeat that contains a half drop. So this half drops down to this. You can see it's a halfway drop. But if I try to put it together, it'll go together like a straight repeat. So the first thing that I'm going to do is select the entire image, select all, and say new layer via cut, and that cuts it off of the background so that I don't have to worry about moving things around. And then I'm going to make my canvas size much bigger so that I can mock up what would look like in a 12 by 15 screen. But when I went to go change my canvas size, I noticed that the photo brought this in at a really, really big scale. I'm gonna save myself the trouble and rescale it before I move on to the next step. So I'm gonna cancel there and go to image size, and within reason, I think that I can knock it down to 30 inches wide without causing any problems. As you know, the screen is only 12 by 15, so we'll scale it down more from here. So I'm going to change my canvas size, image canvas size, and I'm going to make it really big, like 60 inches by 60 inches. So I have a lot of area to work in. I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to make a fixed size 12 by 15 rectangle that will indicate the size of my screen and the area that I can use to print. Just moving this layer down so I don't have to overlap later. So I'm going to take this repeat unit, and I have to figure out, okay, I can't do anything less than this because it's a very wide half drop. And I know we talked in class about maybe adjusting the artwork so that it can be scaled down more. If I had a problem, I would probably make this a more square repeat unit by getting rid of some things and refixing the repeat so that it works. But we're going to work with what's here now. So I know that I can't make it any less pattern or else it won't continue. So I'm going to shrink it down to something that will definitely fit into the screen. And I'm going to zoom in so we're focused just on that area. I'm going to duplicate this. So again, I'm using the move tool and the option key to duplicate and duplicate. And maybe I can get it in one more time. There you go. So I have 4 total vertical repeats that can fit in here. I'm going to select the top one, hold the shift key down, select the last one, and then merge those layers. Okay, so this is the thing that could fit into the screen. However, if I try to print it, I'm just going to move it over here to show you. If I try to print it on the table and try to line up the pattern with itself every time, I guarantee you it's not going to work because it's very hard to line things up on fabric. Every time you pull the screen up, the fabric's going to move slightly. So instead of trying to do that, I'm going to work into what's called a jogline. So a jogline is basically a way of turning this into a puzzle piece. So the goal of a jogline is to draw a line through the artwork that doesn't go over any motifs, and I need to go as straight as possible. So I'm going to add a layer so that you can see this. Ray, sit down. Sit. Dog trouble, sorry. So I'm going to do a pencil line that's rather small. and I'm going to show you where I would be drawing that line. So as you can see, I'm going as straight as possible, and I'm trying not to cut off any motifs. I've made a really big line so that you can see what I'm doing, as opposed to doing it perfectly, but you should get the idea there. You can draw that line if you need to, or if I'm working on paper, I definitely draw the line. But if I'm working digitally, I could also use the lasso tool and just move down, selecting a straight line, or a line that is straight as possible that doesn't cut off any motifs. Some of you might decide at this point, I'm just going to print out this block of pattern and then physically do this. I'm going to draw a line and then cut it apart. That's totally fine. Whatever works for you, but this lasso tool is going to work for me. So I'm cutting through, and once I've gotten all of this selected on the right hand side, I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer, and then I'm going to do new layer via cut, and it's basically going to turn this into two sides. When I rearrange those two sides, they're going to connect in the middle, and there's going to be a puzzle piece shape on the outside. So I'm going to merge those together, and now I'm going to do the other direction. So I'm going to do a horizontal line. It can be anywhere because I'm just moving it, but I'm going to do a horizontal line that goes as straight as possible without cutting through a motif. It's tough because there's a lot of stuff. I don't want to go up and down because I'm going to make the screen longer than it should be. So actually, while I'm doing this, I'll show you that if you can't find a good straight line, you can go through the motif. Just do it strategically so that you're not cutting through a stem or through a flower, but you're actually cutting through the space where they would connect. So that organic cut there, if it doesn't line up quite perfectly, nobody's going to notice. So if you have to go through, you have to go through. I didn't really look very hard for a place to cut through, but this should give you a little troubleshooting that you might need anyway, because it's not always possible to find that line. Anyway, so if it doesn't work, that'll also be helpful to understand. So I see that my line is approximately through here. Could I go lower in some areas so that I don't have too much of a zigzag? Sure. If I'm getting into advanced Photoshop stuff that you are not comfortable with, it's okay to do it your own way, or ask me a question about how I did something. So I'm going to do that and that. All right, I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to do layer, new layer via cut, and then I'm going to move things up and down so that I have these puzzle pieces now. I didn't do a great job putting this sketch together, but I think you understand that when you do it, it's going to be perfect. So I'm going to merge these two layers together, layer, merge down, and I'm going to see if I can center it to make sure it stays within the printing area, and it does. If it doesn't, you can always from here scale it slightly, edit, transform, scale. Just bring it down a little if I'm nervous about something not fitting. That's totally fine. And then this would be the artwork that you would be cutting out on the paper, which is very labor intensive at this scale, so I don't really recommend it. But if you want to, that's what it is. And also, this is the same way you would create a jogline if you were coating a screen and burning it, with emulsion. So I think that's the end of that video. I'm going to just demonstrate really quickly how it does lock together. So you can see, oh, actually, I'm going to make another video about spacing, so this is a good jumping off point from here. So you do not want to end up spacing it like this, because all of that hard work is going to be a problem. So on your next video, I'm just going to do a quick thing about how to figure out spacing, and so that you can measure it when you're printing. All right, I'm going to end it here.